It has been over a month since 46-year-old George Floyd was killed by a Minneapolis police officer who was seen in a video kneeling on his neck. Those actions sparking a renewed call for change, not just around the nation, but here in Jamestown as well. Joining us on the show are two local leaders with the Jamestown Justice Coalition, Justin Hubbard and Elise Scott. Thank you both for spending time with us today and for talking to us.
Thank you.
First off, I want to get your take on the news that just broke this morning that the Washington Redskins baseball team is now dropping Redskins from their name. What does that mean to you and your organization?
So, with the NFL football team from Washington deciding to retire that name, I think it shows overall that there's been a call nationwide to get rid of these slogans, names, and mascots that are depicting our Native American people in a derogatory manner. And I think it should come from all levels, really from the bottom up, and we can start at our local high schools and club teams as well.
Yeah, and certainly to that point, I know here in Jamestown, your group has called on Jamestown Public Schools to change the Red Raider mascot name. Have you been in talks with the school district, and does it seem like they're open to changing the name?
We're actually going to meet with them this week. On Thursday, we're going to meet with the new superintendent, and he seems like, yes, he is interested in having a conversation.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from the community since taking the stance and calling for change in regards to the name? I know there's been a lot of people on social media, some of who very much in support, others, though, not always agreeing. It seems like there does have to be more discussion before anything were to happen.
Yeah, overall, it's been mixed, but I do think that it's important regardless of any backlash.
Elise, do you have anything to add to that? What kind of feelings have you been getting from the community?
Again, we have a little bit of a mix of people in support of it and then others not so much in support of it. But regardless, it is something that definitely needs to happen as far as us changing the name for Jamestown. It's a great step that Washington Redskins are changing their name. And again, like Justin said, we should also be doing that at the local level.
Now, over the weekend, your group published an open letter to the community talking about the disconnect between law enforcement and community of color. However, there has been open public conversation between the community and law enforcement leaders like Sheriff Jim Quattrone and former Police Chief Harry Snellings, who spoke last month during the first of what was many rallies at Jamestown's Dow Park. For you, seeing the dialogue, what does that say about local law enforcement here?
Well, as far as the disconnect, sometimes we just feel like we don't really have, the Black and Brown community here doesn't really have that personable relationship with law enforcement here. We don't really have a lot of community policing going on. We don't really know our local law enforcement. We don't really have that relationship with them. They're not really coming to these communities and getting to know the citizens that they are policing. So that is where we were coming from when we said that there is a disconnect there. However, we have been talking to Sheriff Quattrone, Chief Snellings, we have talked with Tim Jackson, and our dialogue has been great. They're very open to what we have to say and making sure that we are making these changes so that we can connect on a better level with law enforcement.
Justin, from your perspective, I know you spoke publicly with Sheriff Quattrone and handed the mic over to him during one of the recent rallies. For you, meeting with him and talking to him, does that at all give you a little confidence that you can get to the change that your group is asking for?
Well, it shows me that it's a work in progress. And I think that having these open dialogues are very important for groups like ours that are advocating for minority communities to have these open dialogues with not only people in law enforcement, but public officials as a whole is extremely important. But at the end of the day, those relationships cannot take precedence over the communities that we're trying to represent. So we hope that through these dialogues, we're able to not only represent these communities, but advocate for them as well, and hopes that some of the disconnect and harmful misinformation that's been put out can end and we can actually have community policing.
What specifically do you want to see changed within the police agencies? Is it that community policing, or is there more to it?
Definitely the community policing. We really need to establish a better relationship with law enforcement. We understand that as far as on a national level, there have been calls to defund the police. However, we know at a local level that is not something that can really work because we are already underfunded. So we really just want to work with them the best way that we can in order to form these better relationships.
And I would include that in order to have community policing, we need members of the police department that are actually within our communities. And I know that that's a push from our mayor as well, that they want more police officers that serve on JPD to actually live within the city limits of Jamestown. And overall, I think if those numbers increase, then you'll see a better relationship between police and these minority communities and the entire community of Jamestown, because they will actually be part of this great city.
Now, right now, a big decision that will likely have a long-term impact on the policing here in Jamestown is underway, with Jamestown Mayor Eddie Sundquist seeking the city's next police chief. For you and your group, what type of person would you like to see fill that office?
We'd really like to see somebody that is open and willing to have these conversations. We know that sometimes it can be uncomfortable, but we really need somebody that is open to policing with respect to race, because we all understand that race does play a part in how people perceive the police and, again, how the police perceive other people. So it's definitely important that they are aware of these things, that they're aware of the issues that are happening within the Black and Brown community, so that way they can better serve those communities.
And I would add that we need a leader that is, of a new guard, that's interested and invested in, 21st century policing. With the uprisings and the civil unrest that's happening all around the country, really it needs to be a new day for law enforcement all over. And I think that involves a lot of community input. And we need a new chief that is willing to allow for that input and perhaps look at policies, look at codes, look at the morale of the police department, and really start to change the culture of our local police.
Now, in the past, we've seen very low participation when it comes to that local government, ranging from uncontested races to low attendance at public meetings. Why do you think that is, and what are your group trying to do to help get people more involved?
So overall, when it comes to government as a whole, I think that a lot of people, not only in our city, but in the United States, think that the system is broken. And it's very difficult when you do not value a system, when you think that it has failed you. But overall, what we're trying to let our community know is that we are the government, that these people represent us and they work for us. And so I think the biggest part is to start seeing that and then starting to get the people invested in local government. Really all politics starts at the local level. So going to city council meetings, talking to your local representative, knowing what ward you live in, speaking to the mayor. I think those are all easy steps that most people can make, but sadly we haven't had that in the past. But I do see now that there is a call from the community to start getting more involved, and I really hope that we see that, and we're going to do our best to foster that.
And at least to your point, do you feel that people here in Jamestown really are ready for that change and ready to say, okay, I'm going to get involved?
I hope so. It's definitely a change that needs to happen. And like Justin said, this starts at the local level. So we really need to make sure that we know who is representing us, so that way we are choosing the proper candidates that are going to put forth in our community the things that we need. So that way we can also get involved in the government on a larger scale and make these changes happen on a wider scale as well.
And I know one point that we here at WNY News Now have talked with election officials locally about is it seems like a lot of people aren't interested in local races. They only really focus on presidential races and even some congressional races that don't get too much traction. So to me, it kind of just blows my mind because it's when you look at the local level, this is where decisions are made that directly affect dinner table conversations, so to speak. For you and your group and connecting with people, do you think that this is a turning point, not just here in Jamestown, but across the whole nation where people are going to say, let's call for this change instead of just calling for it, let's take action on it and let's not stop until we get to where we want to be?
I really do think that, when you talk about people being invested on the national, the federal level, like presidential races over their own local government, I think a lot of that is the result of the way the media covers it. With these 24-hour media blocks that you see on national television, it turns out to be more like a sporting event or like a soap opera than, actual government work and legislation getting passed. So I think a lot of our people see that that is something that's broken. And I think the best way to fix it is, like you said, those dinner table conversations, but we need to start investing in our own communities and our own cities. And the best way to do that is to talk to your local representatives and, possibly run for office, show up, get involved. Because at the end of the day, these people are your neighbors. These people are your, family and friends. And not only does it affect your livelihood, it also affects your pocketbook when we're talking about local politics and taxes. So I think that that's the best way for people to get involved. And I really hope that in Jamestown, but all over, that people start seeing that they are the government.
And to that point of getting involved, Mayor Sundquist is bringing back the Jamestown Human Rights Commission. And he tells us that since accepting applications for the 12-member board, he's received an overwhelming amount of feedback and possible candidates. What do you think that says about the community and those now who are interested in getting involved in the direction that they want to drive the ship now?
I think that the local community is definitely seeing that they can use their voices, that they can be active in what happens here. And I feel like it's great that so many people are applying for the role. It shows that we are actually willing to make a change here in our own community, and that's great.
Certainly, and I thank you both for joining us today. Finally, how can people get involved with your coalition group? What's the best way for them to learn more and get connected?
So we are constantly active on our Facebook page. We make sure that we let everybody know who we're meeting with, when we're meeting with them, and we always ask for their input about what they would like us to bring to those meetings and what concerns they have. So you can follow us on Facebook, like our page at Jamestown Justice Coalition, and you can keep up to date with everything that's going on with our group.
All right, Justin Hubbard and Elise Scott with the Jamestown Justice Coalition joining us today. Thank you both for your time. Certainly the conversation continues beyond this one, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.